Hey, 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 and welcome to Terry Messenger's Genius Zone. And by now, you know this is the place and the space where you are going to receive your greatest gold nuggets for the week. But boy, oh boy, do we have a powerful session on our podcast coming up. This lady that I'm about to bring on board is a trauma informed psychotherapist. So she suffered from anxiety as a child, so she knows what it's like to live in that world and even allow it to be like a normal. She deals with people that are very high functioning, very high achieving, and very passionate. And as a integrative hypnotherapist and a nervous system specialist, she is known for helping high achieving people to break through that high functioning anxiety and perfectionism, and also the overwhelm, the internal overwhelm, so they can finally feel safe, seen, and successful from the inside out. So brace yourself, guys, because you're going to want to stay to the end, because she's going to show you some powerful modalities to help your nervous system to adjust and align, to show you some incredible tips and tricks, especially if you're like me, if you happen to be a high achieving woman. So with no further ado, I give you the beautiful Shelley Martinez. How are you, Shelley?
I'm fantastic, Terry. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm all the better for being here with you, because I just can't wait to just experience, your knowledge and, your incredible work and your art and, your experience. So thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be doing this today and hang out with you.
Awesome. And tell us, where are you? Where are you located?
So I'm in a small suburb of Albuquerque, New Mexico in the USA.
Ooh, that's very exotic. Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So you're a bit of a Carl Jung fan, as a lot of the people that come on the show, but we all know he was a legacy. What do you believe Carl Jung's legacy was, in your opinion?
I think the most important things I take from him is his curiosity and his very gentle but very deep approach to the subconscious and
Right.
looking at symbols and metaphors and how healing those can be.
Right. Well, that's very, very important, because this is what it's all about. And people don't quite often understand about those symbols and those metaphors. And yet, that's how our subconscious mind works, right? It actually
Yes.
works more through symbols and metaphors than content and a lot of details of he said, she said, this, that, and the other. It's more of a energetic field. And of course, you also are inspired by Melissa Tears. And I believe she was really a practitioner of neuroplasticity, where I guess that part of the brain, the more pliable, like that's almost like when we're in childhood, we tend to take in the most information easily and quickly. But the neuroplasticity of the mind is so vitally important. But what was it that you really admired Melissa Tears for?
Well, Melissa has developed over the last 25 years some amazing techniques to be able to help people to heal in their subconscious mind in an incredibly short period of time. The first time I saw her, she healed a woman from her grief over losing a pet in about 5 minutes.
Oh,
And it was
wow.
the most remarkable thing I'd ever seen. And I thought, I've got to get training with this woman.
Oh, I don't blame you. I mean, if somebody can actually create that, and I am quite familiar with being able to really, knock a trauma out of the park that people have been living with for even 60 years, and be able to see them just boom, and that magic happening just like that. So do you know, is there a name for that technique, Shelley, by the way?
Yes, she calls it integrative change work.
Oh, okay. So integrative change work. So you actually learned the art of that. Do you practice that with your patients and your clients?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. I use a lot of
yeah, yeah.
it's just so
So,
powerful.
yeah. So I guess you would kind of believe in the philosophy as, Carl Jung does, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
let's unpack that. How do we make the unconscious conscious? And what can you tell, you know, our listeners, when this goes to air, when this goes to podcast, what that actually means?
So I think the first step to making the unconscious conscious is being willing to dive deep, being willing to look in the mirror and see ourselves and our lives more from an objective standpoint so that we don't kind of fall into the hole of being overwhelmed by what's happening. So, first off, is that curiosity, but also
Mm,
to have kindness at the same time. You have to balance those things. So,
wow.
open, curious, kind, and then looking at what are your symbols, what are your patterns, what are the things that keep coming up for you thematically, and then doing techniques like art and journaling and just kind of free association and talking, those sort of techniques, because they're very, very revealing about what we're really thinking in our subconscious.
Yeah. That's pretty ironic actually. And so you understand that typically a lot of the people that you come into contact with that really connect with you, that are praying for your service, they tend to be very high achieving people. They tend to be the most responsible person in the room. I can remember hearing a saying that my father always said: if you ever want to get a job done properly, ask the busiest person in the room.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder. And then those that are just not busy and they're just not doing anything. I mean, it's interesting how that happens. What do you think is happening here? Because with obviously you understand as a psychotherapist as well, a lot of the human behavior and what is actually going on in the brain of a person who is such a high achiever. Do you think they're actually driven by something that may be a little bit deficit, or what's your explanation on that?
Well, for a lot of those folks who are high achievers, my experience with them in my coaching and my therapy is that they suffer from high functioning anxiety, which they often don't recognize what that is, what's happening for them, because they think that it's normal. That's what our culture has told us. But this anxiety of never being able to say no to things, of being very perfectionistic and hard on yourself, of also being driven to never disappoint anyone or make a mistake, causes them to be extremely high achieving. And it's interesting because on the outside, most of the people who know them don't think they're anxious at all because they often look very confident, but they don't feel that way on the inside.
Do you think that's a kind of a bit of a learned behavior that they have acquired over time, and that they've learnt? It's like, it's like a normal, a new normal. And when I've been saying this a lot on this podcast lately, but the frog that is in the water and the water slowly heats up, but the frog
Yes.
doesn't really feel it because it's so normal and gradual. Whereas if a frog jumped into the hot water, they'd jump straight out again. They wouldn't tolerate it, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's the perfect example,
Mm.
because so many people with high functioning anxiety start out with what I think of as like regular anxiety, which is the more observable, visible anxiety.
Mm.
And at some point, they shift into that high functioning anxiety because they're stuffing that anxiety down and trying to pretend it's not there. And
Right.
so that's often the trajectory. That's certainly the one that I took.
Mm. Now, you were an anxious little girl, and you also had a little bit of fear. You're obviously quite impressionable. You had someone say something to you once, and you were scared. And I can relate so much to that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that story and you as a little girl, and just how anxiety, you probably thought it was normal for you, right?
No, absolutely. So I was anxious for as long as I can remember, honestly. But when it really struck me, when I had a name for it finally, was when I was in kindergarten. My teacher told me one day that I was going to get ulcers. And I had no idea what she meant, but it sounded really bad. And so it just made me more anxious. But what I also learned was that this wasn't okay, that I needed to try to hide this better because it bothered people. I think she was very exasperated with me, probably with good reason at that point. But how I took that in as a kid is that this wasn't normal, this wasn't okay, and I needed to hide it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And how many people are doing that? And as you said earlier, it's kind of like stuffing things down, which cannot be healthy at all. So, you obviously, they do often say, I can remember my husband saying this one day, and that is, if any of our kids come home from school and say to us, this is many years ago, that they're going to become a psychotherapist or, a counselor or God forbid, a psychologist or anything else, we know we really fouled up, because there's some big problems. There's some big problems. You can't believe it, right? His son, a very high intellect, came home one day from school, and just as he said, I've decided what I'm studying when I go to university, psychology.
Yep.
So, and look, you obviously went ahead and studied psychotherapy, and you probably had a little bit of that curiosity because of your own suffering. Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. I think I always wanted to help people, but I was very certainly also looking for a way to help myself with my anxiety. I was, tired of feeling so keyed up and so hard on myself and so worried about the next catastrophe that I was imagining in my head all the time.
Oh,
So that's why I went into psychotherapy and got my counseling degree, was to help others, but also to help myself.
wow. You sound like, I had a lady on the show that came on a couple of weeks ago, and she did the positive intelligence. She did it with Shazad. And the two things that came up for me was hyperachiever and hypervigilant. And I
Yep.
feel like that is your client. And that's why I've gone, oh my gosh, is she talking about me? Has she been spying on me? Like, but look, what do you expect? This is what happens with a lot of people like us anyway, who are very high achieving. We are very passionate. And I think, I don't know about you, but I've really found that it's been in the moments when I've had to literally surrender and sort of pull back, where I don't know, there's something inside that kind of groundedness of imperfection, if you will, that has actually called in my clients more so, or caused that, that person who doesn't know me from a bar of soap to go, oh yeah, no, I'm going to work with you. I already know, I've seen you. And it wasn't me 5 years ago, all glammed up and kind of like, really just on this high spiritual kind of journey, but it's about me on this more of a crusade, if you will, where this is what I'm going through, this is where I am, and this is how I cope. And I think that in some ways can be very, more so inspirational. So when you're talking about yourself as that anxious child, as that, hyperachiever, as that person who's so willing to be that person that will say yes and people please and do all those things. What happened for you? What do you think was the biggest breakthrough? I know backstage you mentioned about EMDR, and our clients out there, some of them might go, wait, what? So perhaps you can enlighten us about EMDR.
Absolutely. So EMDR was the first mind-body technique that I tried, and I was incredibly skeptical at first about it, even though it did have some research that looked good. It just seemed a little too weird and outlandish, even though I knew that the traditional techniques to work with my anxiety weren't cutting it. They would work for maybe a week or two if I was lucky. And that was true for my clients as well. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a mouthful. So that's why we call it EMDR.
I get
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it involves basically igniting both halves of your brain alternately when you're focusing on whatever your target subject is that you're trying to resolve. And change happens very, very quickly in that realm. And after I did my first session, it was amazing. By the end of it, I felt so relieved, like this weight had been taken off of me. And I had no idea that I could feel that way. I was so calm and peaceful, and I didn't feel like I had to go out and prove myself and be perfect and, make myself valuable to everyone. I didn't have to engage in all of that kind of compulsive behavior. And it lasted. It wasn't just, for this hour, this day, or this week. And so that's when I decided I needed to get training and kind of dove down that rabbit hole of mind body techniques to work with anxiety.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I've got a question for you on that, actually. And it's, I became a absolute scholar of neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis and obsessed with it, and went to all different schools and here and there and everywhere. And I did come across a shaman, and his name was Dr. Gary D. Rodriguez, and he actually taught this rapid eye movement. And I'm a really good person to be able to watch something. I'm very much like the experiential creature, seeing, hearing, and actually experiencing it at the same time. And I'm not sure, but maybe we can just compare notes here. We genuinely did not get into this backstage, did we? But I just want to ask you the question genuinely. So I'll tell you about what he taught me, and then I want you to kind of like just tell me how EMDR, whether there's any kind of similarity whatsoever. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So he called someone up from the audience, and they had a specific trauma. That was the prerequisite. You have to have a specific trauma, something that's still in your body, something you're still feeling, thinking, and going through if you thought about it. That person came up, and he did a couple of things, and he went through a few things, and he brought color and sound and, like you said earlier, metaphors and symbols and things like that into play. And then he wiped out the trauma in one foul sweep. using the eyes to move back and forward, this way, that way, this way, that way. Now, I picked it up like that, and that actually became quite profound. Where, I still wonder this question, but when people came in to see me as a clinical hypnotherapist many years ago, did they walk out with that incredible, profound experience because of the whole session? Or did they walk out with that incredible experience because what happened in that 5 minutes at the end? Curious, just curious. But can you relate to any of that with the rapid eye movement? Is it anywhere similar? Can you talk me through that, Shelley?
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm hearing is that it's very, very similar to EMDR and then Brainspotting, which is a kind of a 2.0 of EMDR, in that what you're doing when you're moving the eyes back and forth and diagonally and vertically, so horizontally, vertically, and diagonally, to say it better, what you're doing is you're stimulating the two halves of your brain, and you're doing it in a rhythmic way. And when you focus on something specific, a specific target, and you're moving your eyes in that direction, what it does is it puts that information back into what we call a narrative memory, which is a memory that you remember that this happened before, and you might talk about how it felt when that happened to you, but you don't relive it. You don't feel it as though it's happening right now. So one of
Mm.
the things that happens with trauma is that it kind of blows the circuits between the two hemispheres, the right and the left hemisphere of our brain, so that they can't talk to each other. And the information, the memory, gets misfiled, and it gets filed as something that's ongoing, that's happening right now, which is why if you think
Mm.
about it or talk about it, all of a sudden it's right there in your body, it's right there in your face and your mind, and you kind of have to just go through it until it wears
Mm.
itself out.
Oh
And
gosh, I love that. I love that. So, in layman's terms, you're kind of blowing it out of the water.
yes, exactly. And that
Mm.
allows all of the other things you do in your session to really stick. Because
Mm.
otherwise, what happens is you can heal that left brain, which is the more analytical, logical part. You can heal that side, but where that trauma is stored is actually on the opposite, on the right side.
Oh,
And if
okay.
those two can't talk, then you can't benefit from that, the other 55 minutes of your session. You can't benefit
Yeah.
it from it nearly as much because you've got this block. The information isn't transferring over about that one thing. It's not about everything. It's
Mm.
about that one trauma
I
or the one.
know. I love that. I love that you said that. And I want to add to that because I feel that this is just so profound. Um, when Shelley is talking about, you know, absolutely annihilating that trauma of that one thing, so you might have a specific situation that has actually put so much, negative energy into your body that you're getting triggered a lot, and you can feel it in your body. However, here is the thing, okay? When you blow that one thing out of the water, it's not just that one thing, is it? So even though it's only that one thing, like, come on, just trust me here, because quite often I'll say, come on, what is that one thing? Oh, I've got 100 things. I'm like, no, I want one thing. And we'll go into it, we'll go deep, and we'll find it, and then we'll crack the code. And then I'm not sure what your thoughts are on this, Shelley, but then it's kind of got this domino effect where it kind of like just suddenly a lot of the other stuff that were attached to that same feeling kind of blow over. Does that kind of resonate?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, I think, so hopeful about this work because people may initially feel like, but I've had so many things happen to me. It'll take years for me to get through all those things. But like you said, if you find that core piece and resolve it, because the other things, that's like a foundation, and the other things are stacked on top of it. And once you pull out the foundation, it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys play Jenga over there. I don't know
Yes,
if you
we
have
do.
that game.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do. Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, if you pull out one of the bottom pieces, if you pull out
Yeah.
too many of those, the whole thing topples over.
What a great metaphor. I love that. That is so true. I often, I used to sit there and say to the men, if it was a man that was dealing with trauma, I would always say, think of it like a house, weight bearing walls, and you take out the main weight bearing walls. What happens to the roof and the rest of the ceilings? And I'd say to
Yeah.
the women, think of it like a pearl bracelet or a necklace. Take out the start, the end, and the middle, and what happens to all the others? So
Ah,
incredible.
oh,
Yeah,
those are great metaphors. I love those.
thank you. And I got inspired by your metaphor. So you talk about brain spotting. I have never literally heard of this before. And it's an offshoot of EMDR that allows the nervous system to unwind trauma. Can you kind of just go into it? Like, what is the difference? Brain spotting, EMDR, what I've spoken about, how does this work?
Well, so Brainspotting was developed by a man named David Gray, and he was a master EMDR therapist and discovered it quite by accident, and then started doing research on it. And we found that it's just as effective as EMDR, but in my personal opinion, it's not nearly as intense on the client. So it's easier for us to go in and access the things we need to access to heal. And it still uses what we call bilateral stimulation. So you're still causing one side of the brain to fire and then the other alternately, which is what's happening when you're moving your eyes, when you were describing that technique. Rapid eye movement, I think you said it was.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So it's doing the same thing in your brain. But we're coupling it with they call it a brain spot, but really what a brain spot is it's an eye position. So if you've ever found yourself thinking about something, really pondering something, and realized that you were staring into space, that's because you found a brain spot that made it easier to access the material. So we do it intuitively. And that spot, that eye position, corresponds to something in your brain that's allowing you, it's like a doorway, and you get better access and you can process more deeply and more quickly. In this case, we're purposely looking for where those brain spots are while you're getting the bilateral stimulation and focusing on, whatever it is. I like that it's a little more gentle, because you can also start with something that's very broad. We don't have to spend a lot of time finding that one core memory or experience, because we also work with the body. So we stay very present, and we're working more with the body than the mind. So the body sensations that are coming up, and as a client, your job is just to be present and aware, and let your body do the work. Your body is actually processing, because there's a lot of research that suggests that the subconscious mind is actually the body, which you're probably very aware of.
Wow. Yeah. It's just a good reminder.
So by accessing this, we're healing the subconscious and rewiring your nervous system, again, very, very quickly, but without the intensity of EMDR. So
Yeah.
people are less likely to get overwhelmed by it. And so that's
Yes.
why I prefer it.
And I do have to ask you this as we move into this space of the podcast, and remember to stick around, because Shelley is going to take us through some pretty dynamic, powerful techniques to help us get out of these little stews, negative situations, even those stresses at the end of the show. Shelley, are you still taking on one-on-one clients? And if so, can they contact you through the links that we provide in the show notes.
Yes, absolutely. I am always accepting new one-on-one clients for coaching,
Okay.
and the link to reach me will be in the show notes because I don't see people for very long. It doesn't take a lot of sessions. In fact, we're talking a couple of months to work through whatever it is they're dealing with, generally speaking.
That is amazing. Gee, I need to
Yeah.
come and see you right now, actually. So, well, I'm here. I'm so grateful to be here with you, and it just goes to show. Look, it doesn't matter where we are in our, awakening, or how enlightened we are, or we're not enlightened. We all need to look after ourselves, really, don't we? I mean, our brain and our body. I mean, oh my gosh, like wow.
Yeah.
It is so
There's
precious. It's so fragile, and you're dealing with obviously people that are high functional. They are cloaking, they are masking, they are quite competent, and yet that these people are the ones that need the biggest neuro hacks to disrupt some of those anxieties. So I think what we'll do is we'll move to the exciting part of our show, where we're going to talk about some of these, I guess I'm going to call them neuro hacks that disrupt anxiety in minutes. And let's
Mhm.
start, if you don't mind, can we start with the grounding and the breathing reset?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to show you that. And so all of these techniques work very quickly. They're all under a minute, so everyone has time to do these. They work for everybody. As long as you have a body, this is going to work for you. And I'll give you a little explanation of why it works after we do it together. Does that sound, are you willing to do this with me?
Absolutely. Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. So I always start with my favorite breathing exercise. And I'll tell you in a bit why that actually works. But what we're going to do in a moment is I'm going to ask you to breathe in deeply through your nose, to fill your lungs as much as you can, to really think about stretching out your diaphragm. So getting really deep into your lungs. And so we're thinking about stretching it out front to back, side to side, as much as is comfortable for you. And then when you exhale, you don't have to hold it, but after you've breathed in really, really deeply and stretched your diaphragm, then you're going to exhale as though you were blowing through a straw with pursed lips, like very slowly for about 1.5 times as long as you inhaled. I don't have people count because most people don't have time to count, but if you want to and that makes you feel better, go right ahead and do it. I'm more of a kind of an organic, sort of person when I work. And we're going to just do about 3 of those together. But I would ask you first to just check in with your body for a moment and see where there might be any areas of tension or stress, just for a little before and after. So go ahead and check in with your body and just notice if there's any stress or tension. You don't need to do anything with it, just be aware. And then I'm going to ask you to inhale, to breathe in as deep as is comfortable. And if you have trouble with that, lean away from your chair. And then exhale through a straw about twice as long. And we're going to do it again. I can't quite do this with you and talk, so forgive me for that. Breathe in. Exhale. And one more. When you're done with that, just take a moment to check in again with your body and see if it feels any different. And I can almost guarantee that it does, that you feel a bit more relaxed. And we generally do between 2 and 4 of these at a time. If you start to feel lightheaded at all, then just breathe normally. But I love this because you can do it anywhere with anybody. Nobody really notices you doing this, which is very nice. I work with a lot of clients who are professionals, who are in meetings and presentations and, really on the spot all the time. And so this is a great way to relax your body and your mind very, very quickly, that you can do with everybody. Nobody really notices it. If it seems weird to purse your lips, then you can keep your mouth normal, but you really want to make sure you're slowing down the oxygen as it's leaving your body.
Wow.
And
That's
yeah, how was that experience for you?
Oh, amazing. I was just about to say actually that I feel that everyone needs a mentor, coach, healer, or leader to actually keep them accountable, because sometimes, like, obviously being in the position that I'm in, I understand this kind of work, but
Sure.
that experience was a whole different level because you were guiding it. And so for me, that I can feel shifts happening in my body just in that time. Now, I know that I process very quickly because of obviously the work that I'm doing, but that's like ridiculous. That was crazy quick. I can feel that I feel different, more different now than I did 5 minutes ago. But it doesn't stop there because we're going to keep
Yeah,
going. we have
absolutely.
we have the stop the thought spiral in 30 seconds. Now, I can't wait for this one. It's like, uh-oh, is this an interruption loop or what is this? But bring it on, girlfriend, because I am looking
Absolutely.
forward to understanding how I can break, because I know that that happens to all of us, where we're locked into that thought pattern that we go through. How do we get out of it? Over to you.
Yeah. There's a really, really fast and easy way to do this. And all the techniques I use are science-based and based in the mind and body. So what we're going to do this time is I'm going to layer a few different instructions together, but they're very, very easy. And once you've learned how to do it, then you can do it very quickly on your own. And it takes 15 to 30 seconds. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is find something stationary that's in front of you. And I want you to just soft focus your eyes on that spot. And you're going to keep your eyes soft focused there for the whole exercise. Make sure it's not something that's moving like another person or a pet, something, still. And while your eyes are soft focused here, I want you to see into your peripheral vision as far as you can. So notice what's in your periphery while your eyes are stationary in front. And you don't need to name anything that's out there, you just need to see. And now while you're stationary in front with your eyes, seeing in your periphery, I want you to become aware of the space that's along the side of your head, around your ears, just being aware of that space. And finally, keeping all three of these things in place, I want you to also become aware of the space behind your head. So the space all around your head with your eyes soft focused in front and seeing in the peripheral. And we're just going to stay there with that for a few seconds. And now gently bring your vision forward to normal, and you're done.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
So can I just ask you a couple of questions about that one?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you asked us to gaze at something that was non-moving and just hold our gaze there. So that's obviously getting into the seeing side of it. But then you asked us to expand our vision out into the peripheral.
Yes.
What is it that's truly working to stop the spiral thoughts? Is it the fact that we are becoming really, really present and taking notice of other things, do you think, in our sensories, or is there something else? I love to know all these. I mean, probably the average person there that's just listening because they want to get so much out of this and they may not be in the coaching field, they'll go, who cares, Terry? It worked. But can I ask?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a nerd. I love to talk about all of this. So there's a couple things that are happening. And why this works is really twofold. You caught on the first part, which is it makes you be very present in the moment. And everything slows down in the present. When we're present in our bodies and our experience, then we're at much more peace. But the second thing, when we have our gaze soft focused in front, but we notice out into the periphery, what we're doing is we're purposely signaling our brain that we are not in danger, and it makes it go out of the fight or flight response, because the more stressed we become, and this is true for anxiety, for sadness, for overwhelm, for stress, for anger and irritability, for any kind of distress at all, our vision starts to narrow down into what's called focal vision. So we get more and more and more tunnel vision.
Oh, okay.
And when we purposely make our eyes see outward, we're literally telling our brain that it can stop doing that we don't need that we're safe.
My gosh, I needed to ask you that question. I needed to ask you that question. I am such an intense human being. And, you know, like when I get locked onto something, I get locked onto it. And I'll be like, oh, holding on, holding on. And I mean, it's great. It goes in my favor in many ways, but it also goes in my disfavor. And it can be a lot. It can be a lot. So I love that you've just given me a conscious framework of what I can do to break out of that loop. So thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we only held it for about 15 seconds. Most people tell me it feels longer than that.
Yeah, it did. Absolutely.
Yeah, it really does, because you're present.
I feel different. Just talking to you here, I can tell you right now, I'm not just saying this, but I actually feel different to what I did at the beginning of the show. So I'm just wondering if you're out there, I wonder how you feel. So when you get to hear this, do you feel different? And maybe if you want to go back and listen to it again, you might like to measure it. And even if you're having a bad day, I would say come and listen to this, because this is powerful, but we've still got one more to go. So, you know, just stay settled, everybody, because we're just moving. We're keeping the best to last. But this is the 60-second emotional reframe. Is that what you call it? Tapping and rewiring or something like that?
Yeah, it's basically get out of whatever emotional distress you've got going on card. And it takes about 60 to 90 seconds if you're really wound up, 45 to 60 if you're not so wound up, but you'll be done in about 90 seconds. And it brings you out of, again, any kind of distress, whether that's anger, whether it's anxiety, stress, overwhelm, you know, also works for sadness, things like that.
Take it away, girl.
Okay, so for this one, it's easier to do for most of us, unless you were a drama kid, and I wasn't a drama kid. So I'm not good at doing this without an object. I have trouble keeping coordinated enough. So if there's something small in front of you, like a pen, or I've got this little toy that's sitting on my desk, an eraser, anything at all, it doesn't matter. Yep, perfect. Perfect. And
I'm
so,
I'm
oh,
lighting
we've
my
even got,
candles with this.
I love that. We've got mood lighting even. This is great. And your sparkly ball in the back. This is perfect. I love it. Maybe I should get one of those too. This would be fun to demonstrate with that. Oh, you're giving me such great ideas, Terry. Oh my gosh. Okay. So first off, I want you to imagine a line that's bisecting your body vertically, kind of straight through your nose. And when we do this, what we're going to do is pass this item, and I'm going to hold my hands up so that you can see what I'm doing, but you can hold your arms and hands wherever it's comfortable for you. Okay. So you're going to take the object, whatever that is. And like I said, you don't have to have something. You can use your hands back and forth, but I find it easier to show and to do with some little thing, a paper clip, a water bottle, phone, pencil, your lighter for your candles, whatever it is. And you're just going to pass it and make sure from hand to hand that you're passing your nose. What we're really passing is that midline that we identified. And you just want to pass it back and forth, and you can go really slow or you can go faster. It's whatever's comfortable for you. And what this is doing is the same thing as the eye movement stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is causing one hemisphere to fire and then the other. And by doing so, when we are upset about something, when we're in distress, there's literally an emotional storm that's happening in one hemisphere of our brain. And what this does is it distributes the blood and oxygen more evenly between the hemispheres. But this stimulation, which is very rhythmic, causes that storm to break up.
Oh, very good.
And you only have to do this, between, usually people are better anywhere between 45 and 90 seconds is usually the max.
Okay.
I have a lot of folks who do this if they get stressed at work with like a paper clip down in their lap, and it just looks like you're fidgeting.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm using really exaggerated movements, but you can do very small
if I did
movements.
that, you'd probably think nothing of it.
Nobody does, and you can use really little movements if you want. Like I said, I'm holding my hands up just because that's how you can see what I'm doing. But you can have them down in your lap. And so I have a lot of clients who do this with like little paper clips or things like that under a desk or, a conference table, and nobody has any idea. They just think you're fooling around with something, because you can do it with these very small movements as long as you pass that line. You can also, if it feels better, do really big movements. It's really just up to you. It's doing the same thing.
That's good. I like it. I really like it.
Yeah, since we're so relaxed now from our exercise, I couldn't really demonstrate how it works.
That's amazing.
You can't change because you're already relaxed, but it's amazing. It works very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So that's a minute and a half at most.
That is
Everyone
incredible.
has time.
So guys, listen, you are not broken. Shelley will be able to assure you, and you are not too much. And the fact you have coped this long is evidence of your brilliance, not your failure. But coping isn't the same as thriving, okay? And Shelley is the specialist on this. She understands about those people, probably like me, high achieving people that are driven and just feel like they have to do. I mean, I'm different today than what I was. However, we all do fall into this trap. You don't need to earn to rest. You no longer need to prove your worth. And this is Shelley's philosophy. You can now rewire your brain and soothe your nervous system and reclaim your power. Now, Shelley, where is the best place for this person who I know is praying for you to just come along? Because there's so much, like, just in this short amount of time, on a generalized kind of overview, you've given so much. Imagine what it would be like as a one-on-one. Where will that person find you? Bearing in mind that it'll be all in the show notes, but if you have a number one spot, hotspot, where they can find you, where would you choose?
So where I hang out mostly for social media is on LinkedIn. And then I also have a website, which is shelleymartinez.com, where you can get more information, but you can contact me and kind of check out what I'm doing either place.
Beautiful. And now the last question to conclude, because I know that, people like you that come onto the show, they get into so much momentum and then they get inspired and then they get off the show and go, oh, I would have liked to have said that. Is there something that you would like to add that perhaps I haven't asked you that you would like to just reinforce to that person who really needs to hear your message?
No, absolutely. And I would like to ask you a question as part of that, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So you talked about yourself, your own journey of being very high functioning anxious, and now you've become more real, more authentic, willing to show up, mistakes and all, imperfect as a human being. As humans, we're all imperfect, but when you have high
Just
functioning
the way
anxiety,
we
you're
did on
trying
the
really hard
podcast.
not to be.
Yeah, just the way the blackout happened on the podcast,
Yeah.
because we were meant to meet 24 hours ago and it didn't happen. But yeah, I guess that's very true. Yes.
Yeah, life intervenes, things happen for sure. But do you feel like you are more or less better able to, embrace your life and pursue your goals and be happy now versus before when you were more anxious?
My gosh, what a freaking amazing question. Like, wow. It takes an absolute master to ask that question, but it's so prevalent for anyone that does listen, because it is more obvious now that people, before, yeah, in clinic, people knew I was a hypnotherapist. They'd come in droves. That was a whole different thing. But in the online space, as you know, Shelley, you've got to have a niche. You've got to have this ability to show up, glow up, do this, do that, do the other thing. And I've been doing that for years. But you know something? That's such a profound question, because over the last 6 months, my life has totally changed, and I've had to step into this complete different version of myself, which is much more grounded, much more humble, and much more real, if you like, in terms of having to just be who I am, because this is it, take it or leave it, right? And do I actually achieve better? You being that specialist coach, you bet. Yes. Yes, I do.
Exactly.
I absolutely do. Yeah.
And so that's my big takeaway, is that, high functioning anxiety, I feel like, without going into big detail, is caused a lot by hustle culture and by our society and the way we live these days. And a lot of the people I work with feel like their anxiety is what gives them that edge and makes them successful. But what we know from research, from experience, from anecdotal evidence, is that in fact, coming out of that very high place of anxiety into a more moderate place, which we don't even call anxiety, by the way, we call it alertness. So moderate anxiety is actually not identified as anxiety. It's just being aware, being on top of things. So we only want to nudge it over into that spot. You're going to be so much happier. You're going to have more time. You're going to have more energy. You're going to be more productive. And you're going to have, even better than all of those things, you're going to have more joy to be able to pursue the things that you really want and care about in your life.
Incredible. Oh my gosh. Shelley, thank you so, so very much. I know that you're just going to add so much value and in this podcast to people when they listen into this. And you know what to do, guys? Just click the link and go find Shelley. And, you know, she's probably going to even offer you the ability to connect with her and just get to know her and then make the decision from that. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very, very much for being on the show and being one of the missionary visionaries to help transform lives.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been so fun. I've really enjoyed it. And it's been great talking to you, Terry. You're always wonderful to talk with.
Mwah.